Though previous Hearthstone disenchanting guides are great at covering specific expansions for past cards, I found that all of these guides fall into one huge problem.
That are going to go into wild.
The standard format will change beyond recognition.
All of the standard legendaries.
They're great at covering past expansions for cards you should disenchant, but they can't tell you what future cards to disenchant. And that's what this video is for. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what Hearthstone cards you can safely disenchant without missing them for the rest of your Hearthstone journey. There are 3 different strategies that you can use. There's the efficient one that will give you the most dust, the one I personally use, and the easiest one. You might be asking why I don't use the easiest or most efficient one, considering I'm a Hearthstone content creator that's free to play. Well, I have a really good reason to use my method, but first we need to go through the other 2. The first one is simple and easy. I call it the that card sucks method. It goes like this. That card sucks. If it's an obviously bad card, you're probably not going to use it. Now, would I really recommend using this method? No, especially if the card is brand new. I don't think you can just label a card as bad right away, unless, you know, it's obviously really bad. I opened a Golden Mizaki when it first came out, and I really considered disenchanting it. I ended up not disenchanting it, and a year later, it was so good it caused a deck to be nerfed. Twice! Some cards you just don't know when they'll be good or not. Guitar Lightblade, it has potential, maybe not high, but it has potential. Use this method if you just want to quickly disenchant some cards for some dust, but also use it with some caution. The second strategy will give you a systematic method that will help you determine if you should disenchant cards through this 5-step process. Step 1, find a card you are thinking of disenchanting. For me, this card will be Lobotomizer. It's an epic card that can really only be used in a Thief Rogue deck. Disenchanting this card could give me 1/16 of a legendary. Why do I play this game? It costs so much. Step 2, when is the last time you've played this card? Just like clothing, shoes, self-help books, other sanitary products, if you haven't used it in a while, then what's the point of having them around? So when's the last time I used Lobotomizer? I have literally never used this card in my life. We'll get back to it later. A card I have used is the Paladin questline, Rise to the Occasion. I haven't used the card for about 3 months ever since the last Hearthstone year rotated out. 3 months is a long time to hold on to potential dust, but there is a reason why I waited that long. Every 4 months, a new Hearthstone expansion releases, but they preview cards on YouTube before that. If you ever want to look at future cards, just look on their website during card reveal season. And look at that, Paladin is getting support cards with a questline. I'm not saying you have to wait 3 months to disenchant a card, but if you're close to the next expansion release, then I would at least consider looking at the cards in the next expansion before you do disenchant the card. I'd say if you are a regular player and you're not using the card for about a month, it's a good indicator that you're not going to use that card anytime in the future, unless maybe you're saving that card for a future deck. Once you've considered the last time you've played a card, give that card a plus if you have used that card within a reasonable time frame, that being about a month, or a minus if you haven't. Now onto step 3, will I use this card? This one is pretty self-explanatory. Is the card either good enough or fun enough to justify you keeping it? For the case of Rise to the Occasion, I want to play Quest Paladin next expansion, so yes, I'm gonna keep it. I hate playing Druids, but Wing Commander Mulver can be really good in Token Druid decks, so unfortunately, we are going to have to keep it. That little son of a bitch. Same thing as before, give the card a plus if you want to use the card, or a minus if you don't. Step 4, are there any better alternatives to the card you want to disenchant? There's a reason why Lobotomizer isn't played, and that's because it sucks. There are just better rogue cards to use, so why use Lobotomizer? For some epic cards, there might be an alternative that you can put into the deck that's cheaper, but the legendary cards usually fit in a specific role in the game, so they won't have good alternatives. Give the card a plus if there aren't comparable cards that can replace it, or a minus if there are better cards or comparable cards. Now step 5, evaluate all of your tallies together. For a fresh card, step 1, here's Overdraft. Step 2, when did I last use this card? It was about a month ago in some Burn Shaman decks, but it just wasn't good enough, so I stopped using it. So that's a minus. Step 3, will I want to use this card? It has the potential to be good in Burn Shaman decks and in Wild. There are some cool OTK shenanigans with this card that I want to try, so that's a plus. Step 4, what alternatives are there? Lightning Bolt and Scalding Geyser are both pretty decent cards that can serve the same function as Overdraft. The power of Overdraft is pretty correlational to the power of Overload cards, so without Without good support from overload cards like there is right now, I don't see a reason why Overdraft is better or worse than Scalding Geyser or Lightning Bolt. That's another minus. Step 5, let's count the tallies. That's 2 minuses and 1 plus. So by the system, it is probably better to just disenchant the card. Of course, if you really want to try the OTK Overdraft combo, then sure, keep the card. Just know that I'm watching you. Better watch your next step, buddy. But this system is generally good enough to tell you whether you should disenchant a card or not. I guarantee you that after I try that Overdraft combo, I am not going to miss Overdraft after I had my fun with it. For a card like Lobotomizer, where I have literally never used it, will never use it, and do not want to use it, you would think that I, Chow Pow, would disenchant the card, right? The card's in my collection. Do you think I crafted it just to waste 800 dust for the video? I am poor. I personally do not disenchant any of my cards that are not extras or duplicates, and I think there's a very good reason to do so. I don't know about any of you, but I collected Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards as a kid. I think it's great to make a big collection of cards, even if it's just online ones. If I want to play with some old cards and make some weird decks with some bad cards, I can. I have a series where I literally do just that, and tell some pretty embarrassing stories too. It's a whole package. You never know when some old wild cards will suddenly become good in wild too. Most of the time that never happens, but it can. There are some drawbacks to how I manage my collection though. I will be the first to tell you that I do not use the majority of the wild cards in my collection ever. Big Bad Voodoo, fun card if you like losing. Lady in White? No. King Togwaggle? That one's kind of fun. If I disenchant this card, it's not like I'm just losing a card. I will eventually be crafting another card for my collection that I would not have if I didn't disenchant Big Bad Voodoo. The collection will stay relatively just as big, just with some better cards in it. Maybe I have attachment issues or something, but I'd rather just keep all of my cards. It tells a story of what decks I liked playing in Hearthstone. I don't have any Libram Paladin cards. I hated that deck. But I do have a bunch of Evolve Shaman cards because I have a gambling addiction. See, it's a story. It's honestly up to you if you want to use the "that card sucks" method, the 5-step method, or my hoarding method. But what will definitely help you are these general card disenchanting tips. When you're in the collection, type extra in the card search menu from time to time. This command will filter out any cards that you have extra of. So that means you'll see some regular cards that you have golden copies of, or just extra cards you have duplicates of in general. If you know that you're only going to be playing standard, then by the end of each Hearthstone year, sort by each expansion and disenchant every single card that was released in the expansions that are rotating out. You're only going to need them in solo adventures, duels, wild, and casual. Oh no, the casual game mode, what are we gonna do? So if you're not a very big fan of those specific game modes, then disenchant the cards. You're not gonna use them anyways. If you're torn between crafting a few cards, just craft the cards that are the most useful in the most amount of decks. So your neutral cards or your cards that are good in multiple decks. So cards like Finley and Queen Ajara are great neutral cards that are useful in multiple decks. Hero cards are great too if you like playing specific classes. Just to stay away from cards that are really bad unless they're in a specific deck. I'm talking about cards like Queen Lanethel. I have this card, by the way. There are some solo adventures like the Frozen Throne and Ashes of Outlands which will give you free cards that you can disenchant. Also, the first 10 packs you open from any set will give you a guaranteed legendary that you can get an easy 400 dust from. But opening the wrong packs could lose you a lot of dust in the long run. I see a lot of Hearthstone players opening packs that they don't need to, and they waste their dust because of it. If you want to optimize your gold in Hearthstone when you buy packs, you should watch this video right here as I go over what Hearthstone packs you should buy at any point in your Hearthstone journey. Subscribe for more Hearthstone. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you around.